What's happening? Tyler Pyburn here with Phil DiMartino from 5 Tool Productions, another edition of the 5 Tool Prod Pod. Today we're talking about OTT.
Yeah, I'm not doing it.
I was hoping he's going to say, yeah, you know me, because he's been saying it the last 5 minutes leading up to this. So we're talking about over-the-top video content. The reason why we want to talk about this is because people have been talking about it, I feel like, really since you and I went to NAB. I remember that was when I started
10 years ago.
Started hearing about it all the time.
More.
But didn't really understand what it meant. So we figured kind of breaking it down a little bit now, what it means for brands and advertisers, and how it's kind of shifting the way we do things right now. So over-the-top content, you want to give the quick definition of it? If you get in Cliff Notes version.
I'll let you do it, because I think what's interesting to me is I think OTT is one of those things that's used in almost every single industry, article, every paper, and it's like ubiquitous at this point, but I feel like it's just taken for granted that people just automatically know what it is, and it's pretty simple, actually.
Yeah, it's content being delivered to you without going through, say, a cable company. So think of watching a video, and it's going through YouTube as opposed to going through Verizon, Time Warner Cable, things like that. Norwood Cable Access type thing. It's going over the top of it, if that makes the easiest sense. So that's really what it is. Let's talk about some examples. Of what over the top actually is. And I'll let you start with examples because you just yourself kind of cut the cord, right?
I did. So it's interesting because in this day and age, people always talk about like, oh, I'm a cord cutter, and you like want to get off the cable companies, get off the cable company's dime, all this stuff.
I was wondering where you're going with that.
But you can't completely, because you still need internet, right? Exactly. So you have to have an internet provider no matter what. So there's only so far
much that you can really go.
Right. So I'm a cord cutter now in the sense that I have eliminated my cable subscription.
Yep.
Still have to be subscribed to internet, but I am now I'm a YouTube TV subscriber, which is basically delivering me the same TV channels, live TV channels, just delivered completely over the internet. Which is interesting because my last iteration of cable had a traditional cable box downstairs, but the cable box I had upstairs had to connect over Wi-Fi in order to do it. There was no wires. It was just a Wi-Fi access point, basically. And like all your DVR for traditional cable is living in the cloud anyway. So getting off track a little, the point is YouTube TV now exists and is a way to deliver this live television content without going through a cable company. It's month to month, completely kind of changing the game there. So in addition to that, though, I also am getting my YouTube TV delivered to me on a smart TV, which has a lot of other options.
Which is one of the other things. I mean, another example of it is kind of your Apple TV, right? So many folks over the course of the last 10 years have picked up an Apple TV. We have one in 2 rooms of our house, and really, like you just said, we upgraded one of the TVs to a smart TV. We've completely bypassed the Apple TV as well. So we've gone over the top, if that makes sense, directly to the smart TV, because we no longer need Apple TV to get on Netflix. We just go directly to one of the apps that's built in and baked into the television itself, which kind of makes me wonder if in time we'll ever see things like Apple saying, we're going to develop a television now, or Google saying, we're going to develop, they're already developing those screens for phones. If someday maybe they'll say, yeah, well, let's make a 50-inch version of it, or a 70-inch version of it. Who knows if that's ever going to happen. But, that's neither here nor there for this conversation. But what's interesting from a branding perspective with over the top is how we've seen more companies and more content creators be able to go direct to consumer themselves. Right? We've seen, one of the biggest ones as of late, actually 2 of them in particular, right, we're seeing Barstool Sports with their pay-per-view models, right? They're going direct to consumer, and they're making right around $1 million per pay-per-view event of, regular. You and I should box. Maybe we'll make a couple $100,000.
We put up the following they do.
Highly doubt it. We just hurt each other, and that'd be the end of the company. But and Cheddar TV, another great example, one that I really like to follow quite a bit because they've created their own, go up against the likes of CNN and Fox News and say we're going to target the millennial user who's not watching the cable companies and broadcasting networks. We're targeting them, going over the top, direct to the consumer at the end of the day.
I think the really interesting thing you bring up Cheddar is that Cheddar really started as, they were one of the first people to really use, one of the first companies to really use Facebook Live.
And watch, right? They created their own show, one of the very first companies to do that.
And when I signed up for YouTube TV, I was very surprised to see that Cheddar has a channel listed, alongside Fox and CNN and all these other channels listed in the channel lineup is Cheddar. And so now, if you're a YouTube TV subscriber, it's basically as if they have their own network.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a really interesting example of a company that kind of started as OTT first and is now almost going the other way. Like now they're trying to, create 24-hour programming to support their YouTube TV channel. But a lot of it is
repurposed content. Yeah, which we just saw an example literally as we were kind of researching this, 2 minutes ago before we came on. We were laughing and saying, "Oh yeah, this was one of their episodes, I think from Friday, kind of a rerun of some of their content that they run," which is perfectly fine.
So they were kind of OTT first, and I think a company that's the opposite way is ESPN. So ESPN was always, based on cable subscriptions, right? Like that's how you got ESPN. And they're now changing their whole business model dramatically to try to keep up with the changing times. So they've leveraged Facebook Watch. They're trying to change the way they deliver. They were pretty deep with Snapchat in terms of trying to deliver, 60-second quick hit
updates
snippets
of
to
highlights and stories.
To Snapchat Discover and things like that. And their app now, you have to, for some of the content, have a cable subscription for live content, but they're also delivering tons of content just for free through their app. So they're now kind of trying to go the opposite way of what Cheddar did, which is ESPN was cable first, and they're kind of seeing the writing on the wall, which is that, that's increasingly not how people are consuming content, and trying to figure out, okay, how can we still get our stuff in front of people and make money off of it, either via advertising or direct subscription dollars? How can we continue to survive and make money and be a huge multi-billion-dollar company, when people are accessing our stuff mostly through the phone? And it's interesting to see how those two different sides of the coin are reacting.
What's interesting, you start to wonder, like there are obviously all these other services out there, like YouTube TV, like Apple TV, and things like that. But you wonder at a certain point if, with the advancements of smart TVs, if people are just going to have a series of apps on their television that are really the channels or networks that they want to watch, right? So like the example of like right now when you go to, say, Verizon, I just went through this because we kind of re-upped our contract with them. But you go for Verizon, you get you can choose from 3 to 10 different packages, call it, right? So this is the basic package. This is the one with kids things. This is the one with sports as well. This is the movie package. This is the all-inclusive package. This is the travel package. This is the news package, whatever it may be. And they try to bundle everything together for you. Obviously, they charge a pretty penny. But I wonder if at a certain point you basically say, well, really, like in my house, my kids watch a couple of shows. My wife watches Bravo, feels like way too much, but all the time, and a couple Showtime shows. But at a certain point, are you saying, I'm going to go on this TV and I'm going to subscribe and pay monthly $3.99 for this channel, $2.99 for that channel, $5.99 for the kids channel, or I'll pay $12.99 for the kids channel just to keep them quiet. But right there, and saying, I'm going to pick and choose and make my own kind of lineup of networks, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and it does feel like that's more of the way that like live TV is trending. But I think that there's a couple weird different things to this too, right? Like when you think about like the way you watch content on Hulu or Netflix or YouTube or Facebook, any of these channels, it's actually a lot more active. Right, like you're actively deciding, like I'm gonna go on Hulu and pick out this TV show. I'm gonna go on YouTube and watch this vlogger that I like. I'm gonna go on Facebook and I'm gonna scroll through my feed, or maybe I'll go on Facebook Watch and watch a show. Whereas cable TV is way more passive, right? That's why like advertising works so well on cable TV, because it is by its nature like a little bit more of a passive experience. Like scroll through your channel lineup, maybe land on something you want.
During the channel, I'm going to change the channel and watch something different during this commercial break, right?
But it's a little more passive, right? Like the whole idea is that like you just turn on your TV and you're going to watch what's on. And that's almost like from a bygone era. So when you talk about, but then like...
Well, that's an era of 6 channels.
And you didn't have as much choice.
Exactly.
So I think there's a couple of interesting different things at play. Like the ability to pick and choose, like I'm going to pay for, these channels specifically. I think that's one path. And the other one is the people who maybe are, I don't need those channels at all anymore. I'm going to get everything, via a couple of specific apps. I'm going to do everything on demand. So I don't know. It's kind of an interesting crossroads here. And I think YouTube TV specifically and things like that have a chance to change the game because they're still delivering you that live experience that people don't quite want to give up on yet. So it's kind of like a hybrid of it's kind of the best of all worlds, right? You still get the live TV, the local news and things like that without without having to go full bore for the cable subscription.
Well,
So
what's interesting
it's a weird
too is
time.
the fact that a lot of these kind of networks and platforms are becoming creators themselves, right? Like Netflix being the company that goes in there and they're creating a ton of their own.
More than anything else
I
at
think
this
Netflix
point, yeah.
is the leader. Correct. I mean, I could be wrong. I'll have to go and check the stats on this, but I believe Netflix, by network or by platform, got nominated for more Emmys
gonna say that. I
than
think you're right.
anybody else out there. So close to something like that, which is incredible.
Certainly something that
Right.
you would have you never would have believed if someone told you that 5 or 10 years ago.
No way.
Right.
But they're investing in their own original content to draw you into it. They say, okay, we're the platform that has the best original content. Come watch us, right? It was HBO,
Right.
30 years ago, and they said you've got to get
years
HBO because we have the best original content here, right?
Right.
So that's kind of where it seems to be trending more too.
Yeah, so I guess the question is for the everyday brand that's not necessarily a huge media studio like Cheddar or a giant company like ESPN. What does this mean for the average brand that just wants to create content and be top of mind? What does this shift?
Personally, I think is that it just means you have to create more.
Awesome.
Honestly, great for us. But I really do. I just feel like they have to create more because there's even more static in the air, right? They have to cut through even more. So it's create more and create better.
So is it all just about the way I think I agree with you, first of all, but I think in addition to creating more, it's also being smarter about repurposing the stuff you are creating to go to different places, right?
Yep.
And we've talked in the past about YouTube versus IGTV and that kind of thing. But delivering a video to YouTube for an optimal experience is a lot different than delivering it to IGTV for an optimal experience in terms of size requirements and length and all this type of stuff. So I think I agree with you creating more, but also being really mindful and thoughtful about
Strategic about
where's your
what's
audience
going where.
and
Yep.
how are you getting it to them. Right?
Well, a great example is, Cheddar TV. They don't broadcast 24/7 on Facebook, right?
Right.
But they do know what's going to do really well. And I heard one of the podcasts from the CEO, the founder, I forget what his full name is, but anyways, he was talking about, I know what's going to go really well on Facebook, and my own personal LinkedIn account is just kind of tech reviews and innovative things. It could have been a product that's been out for 4 years, but if we happen to show it by way of video and upload it natively, it's going to do really well. I know that's going to sell, and that's just all branding for me. So
Right.
he's really leveraging not so much for the numbers and the advertisers, but from the branding perspective of just getting the Cheddar name out there.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that it's strategic thinking about where your content is going and how it's being distributed there and where your audience lives. It's more and more important because create more, yes, but you can't be everywhere with everything all the time.
With the amount that it would cost to be able to do that, it's impossible, right?
So yeah, I think the fact now, when you think about it, and this has been true for a while, but it's a lot more true now. You mentioned with the rise of smart TVs, the ability to create long form content and actually have people watch it in an appropriate setting, like on a big screen TV. That's true for everyone now. Anybody can basically be treated like a TV network. If you want to produce enough content and upload it to your YouTube channel that your rabid fans can watch it on a giant screen TV all the time, that's more accessible than ever before. The idea of anybody being able to be a media company that's directly in touch with their audience all throughout the day, from cell phone on the train to computer at work to TV at home, that's possible for the average brand more now than it ever has been.
It's really interesting because I feel like, we've been saying it, every company needs to become a media company. That had a totally different meaning 5 years ago. That meant, yeah, you should go ahead and create some company. Now it's be a media company means almost be a network and be strategic and have advisors, as like you said, where the content goes and being mindful of that.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, you mentioned the way the Cheddar CEO thinks about what goes on LinkedIn versus whatever. If you're a company that wants to think about the life cycle of your consumer and you're trying to just be a B2C company, IGTV in the morning when they're on their way in on the train, Facebook for during the day when they're trying to avoid doing work, and
At the office,
YouTube
right?
YouTube once they're at home sitting on the couch either on their phone or on their smart TV, right?
Exactly.
And you can kind of catch them all day long, and trying to be strategic about the different ways and the different types of things you want to get them doing
Exactly.
at different times.
It's
Nuts.
wild, it's awesome, it's nutty,
Create more.
a lot of fun. Create more, create smarter. He's Phil, I'm Tyler. We'll see you guys next time.